there, neighbors. This is Anarchy in the 603. Welcome back to the channel. You're in for another postcard from your friendly neighborhood anarchist. Nobody's favorite, absolutely quality, production quality, free, unedited, off-the-dome dispatch from wherever I am right now to wherever you happen to be. Right now, I'm on the road. And I've been thinking today about, that Simpsons quote that comes up all the time whenever some legislation comes into pass, or like whenever something horrible happens involving kids, and it's the Reverend's wife, won't somebody please think of the children? But like today I was thinking, I'm going to rewind a little bit. So a couple of weeks from now, I have my disability hearing coming up. I have been fighting this disability fight now for going on 4 years. I've got Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. At only 46 years old, I have a team of 8 doctors that I have to see in order to keep my body functioning. I've got osteoarthritis, I've got nerve damage and nerve pain, I've got neurological stuff that I have to deal with as well. Just a cornucopia of physical, internal organ, as well as like joint and muscle and bone related stuff, as well as neurological stuff, all because of this disorder. And this fight has been a lot, and I'm not asking for any sympathy or anything. I'm just saying that, like, right now in our government, okay, we are currently, we've currently got a team of unvetted, unqualified people who have full access to all of the personal identifying data of everyone in the Social Security system. We don't know what they're doing with it, but it is getting fed into AI, which that's kind of wild. But anyway, like, it may even be that these programs get shuttered or dismantled entirely. In fact, for the tax cuts that are coming up for the top earners in our country, in order to pay for that, they are trying to cut $800 billion from the Medicaid budget, which is effectively the entire budget for Medicaid. So that, everyone's insurance through the Affordable Care Act and through Medicaid, which is partially funded by the states, partially funded by the federal government, will be going away if that happens. But also, a lot of people could be thrown off of Social Security disability, or fed through AI and determined, the AI determines that you're not that you're not able, or that you are able, you're not disabled. But the thing is, who is programming this AI? Like, the question is, like, these programs are only as good as the people who program them. But that's a whole other digression. What got me thinking, my brain kind of goes into tangents. I'm thinking about how I might end up getting denied for this even after a 4-year fight, where I have like boxes of documentation of how damaged I am physically. But okay, I used to be a worker for New Hampshire DHHS, and when I was there, I was part of a team that helped to administer Medicaid, SNAP, aid to the permanently and totally disabled, and other programs to the most vulnerable citizens in New Hampshire. And whenever redetermination time would come around for benefits, and I, as a caseworker at the time, had to manage about 900 to 1,000 cases myself, but that was every worker. Every worker in the state had over 1,000 cases each to administer and to oversee. And that number only grew in the time that I was working there, mind you. being said, I mean, like, I only stopped working at the end of COVID restrictions. So, this wasn't all that long ago. But that being said, the people that I saw, my clients, were working families with kids, like, and the elderly, most of the time. Yes, there were a lot of young single people just starting out. Yes, there were a lot of single parents, single mothers, and single fathers who were caring for their families, trying to get by. But I also, because of the opioid epidemic and how hard that hit our state in the last decade or so, a lot of my clients were grandparents, very elderly grandparents, or aunts or uncles or cousins or siblings, older siblings, that were taking in and fostering relative children of theirs because their parents were unfortunately unable to care for them because of issues with addiction. And so we're seeing, in the name of these tax cuts, we are seeing, tons of money, over $46,000 per person to do deportation. There's tons of money going to, they want to do mass deportations, 30,000 or more people. That's to the tune of $46,000 per person to deport. They are looking to do, cut $800 billion from Medicaid. I'm sure SNAP is going to get a bunch of cuts. I'm sure Social Security might be going away entirely. And mind you, that's a program I've been paying into since I was 16 years old. But I've been working since I was 11. And the only time I ever took time off of work was the first 4 years of my son's life to be a stay-at-home mom. That whole, married stay-at-home mom ideal that our country had. And you know what? My husband was active duty at the time. National Guard had been called up to active duty during 9/11, and for a while we were on WIC. Our housing, not only, of course, did the Army pay for, housing for us, but we were also on Section 8, and that's how we were able to afford our first apartment together. These programs are probably going to be going away, and a majority of the mothers in this country are on the WIC program at one point or another in their young parenting life. And that's per each child. Like, someone may go on WIC off and on for 5 or 6 times if they have a large family, or maybe even once if, like in my case, we only had one. Those programs probably going away, and that's valuable nutrition to help raise a healthy pregnant woman, infant, or child, which is what the WIC program is for. Could be completely going away. So yeah, 23, 24 years ago, my husband and I were recipients of these programs, and then when we didn't need them anymore, we no longer qualified, and those were the only ones we were on, were Section 8 and WIC, but we went off those programs exactly as they were, designed to do. And I think about all of the young parents out there that rely on these programs, that are using them as they are designed to do, and now these programs are going to be taken away. And you know what? I know you're probably angry, and you're out there and you're like, well, a lot of these people voted for Trump, so fuck them. I don't care. But think of their kids, man. Think of their kids. I have a son. I also have a lot of kids that I call my bonus kids, those kids that their parents were terrible, but my home was a safe place where they could go and be safe and get a hot meal and have a warm place to stay where no one would hurt them or make them feel unsafe or uncomfortable. And I'm still in contact with these kids to this day, and they still call me mom. And I am 46 years old. These kids are in their middle 20s now, and some of them have kids of their own. And, these programs could be going away, but think of their kids. I don't give a shit if you're a Trump voter. I don't give a shit if you didn't vote at all, or if you voted third party, or if you voted for Harris. I don't want to see your kids suffering. I don't want to see anyone's kids suffering. Yeah, my clients, to this day, I can guarantee you the same. If I went back to work today, if I could, and God damn it, I missed that job. I found so much purpose in that job. Again, most of my clients, elderly people, severely disabled people, and young working families with children. Maybe you don't give a shit about the elderly. Maybe you don't give a shit about the disabled. Maybe you don't give a shit about, single moms or single dads or foster parents taking care of second and third generation kids separated from them by 2 or 3 generations, but there's literally no one else to foster these kids but someone's second cousin. Maybe you don't give a shit about them. Maybe you don't give a shit about any of that. But I thought in this country we at least pretended to give a shit about kids. Most of this legislation that I've been seeing getting passed, this hateful legislation targeting, trans kids in sports and targeting schools, trying to make kids feel comfortable, making them feel seen. Maybe a lot of these kids, a lot of us queer kids were abused at home, okay? A lot of us kids, the only safe place we had was school. And even then we were bullied and treated like shit. But it was still safer than what was happening in our own tidy suburban home. Because I can tell you right now, I was beaten all to shit as a child because of generational trauma that came through my family. I was a physically abused and sexually abused child, psychologically tortured child, and no one ever saw jail time for it, and no one ever will, and I never even got an I'm sorry. And that's another part of the reason why I'm fighting for my disability, because to this day, I still bear the psychological scars of that. But here I am right before my disability hearing, and I guess somehow, some way, I haven't been punished enough. The first time I was abused by a family member sexually, I was 3. That was the time of my first dissociative event, because the trauma, the physical and psychological trauma of what was happening to me literally made my brain think that I was going to die. And I had my first out-of-body experience, my first near-death experience psychologically. And trust me, folks, trust me, neighbors, I've had many more since, and I am still in deep therapy for it. And I have done a lot of work in the last 46 years trying to heal myself of the torture that I experienced. But you know what? How abused does a person need to be? How much healing and work and striving does a person need to have? How broken does a person need to be physically and mentally before some system, some deliberately cruel system, will tell you, you know what? You've done enough. You've suffered enough. But no. I don't know. I've got a hearing in 2 weeks. And maybe this program that I've paid into all of my life, even during some of those years when I was being raped and I was being tortured and I was being beaten, I still went to school and I still went to work. Even during some of those years, I was putting into that system. But have I paid enough of a blood price? I don't know. Do you think so? How about those kids, man? How about those kids that are out there? I've got kids. I got my son. I've got my bonus kids who are all grown, and I've got grandchildren. My grandson is covered. His health care is covered by Medicaid. My grandson has a heart condition. He spent the first couple of months of his life in Maine Medical. He was taken from the hospital the night he was born, whisked away from the hospital he was born in, and taken to Portland, where he spent the first couple months of his life fighting for his life with a monitor that he had to wear for months. And he was on medication until he was nearly 2 years old. And someday he might need to have surgery. Would you like to take the insurance away from my grandson? He didn't vote for anybody. He's innocent in all of this. Anyway. Won't somebody fucking think of the children, huh? Well, guys, it's about time that I pull myself together here. This has been Anarchy in 603. Take care of yourselves, neighbors. But for now, I'm out.